Hey guys, it's Jake. So this is something I've wanted to do for a while, um, more for myself than anything. I want to be able to look back and kind of see how my bag has changed over time and what's kind of gone in and come out, because I historically have made a lot of bag changes. So I figured I'd start doing this. It's another way to, provide some content, maybe get some more information out there about some of the MVP discs and plastic that I throw, because there's not as much knowledge about it as say Discraft or Innova. So yeah, I'm gonna hopefully do this at least once a year, maybe more. And this specific version of the in bag is going to be an in the bag for my winter bag, because I'm gonna try to do some snow winter disking this year for the first time. We'll see how well it goes. But so yeah, it'll be a little bit different than a normal bag because I'm gonna probably disc down a lot of slower discs, mids, and approaches, um, as well as just the plastic types, so they're grippier and maybe less likely to crack or shatter. Um, so yeah, enjoy the knowledge drop here. Hopefully, there's something useful for you, and we'll catch you on the other side of this. All right, so first up, I'm going to start with my putters, my putting putters, because it's probably the most critical piece of the bag, having decent putters that you can trust. And I putt with the Envy. The Envy is a fairly overstable putter. I putt in, it's called the Electron plastic, which is MVP's baseline plastic. And so the Envy, for those that don't know, is actually Axiom discs. So MVP is sort of three different lines of disc, three different brands of disc. There's MVP proper, there's Axiom, and then there's Streamline, which are the discs that don't have the overmold around the outside. So the Axiom Envy is one of the most popular discs ever, for very good reason. It's a great thrower and a great putter, and I throw in the Electron Envy, which is the Electron is the baseline plastic, the grippy, cheap stuff, which is just really nice for most putters in general. People tend to like the baseline plastic, so it sticks to the chains a little better, and just feels a little bit nicer in the hand. So whether it's winter or summer, I tend to putt with these guys, and I have a bunch of these in backups. And the putting ones are the ones that I do not throw with because I want them to maintain their shape and stay nice and flat. So other than the beat up rim from hitting the chains, this guy is pretty clean still. So that's what I'll be putting with. Alright guys, next up, approach discs. Anybody who's played with me, this will not be a surprise, but I throw a lot more Envies for my throwers too. It's just such a versatile disc. So the Envy is an overstable putter, which makes it really nice for driving too. It doesn't get too much of a turn to it. That being said, my most understable approach disc is this Envy. So this guy is in the Electron soft plastic. Electron comes in soft, medium, and firm, and that means how much is it going to bend, like so. So the soft stuff is super rubbery, gummy. Doesn't feel like it when you first get them fresh, but they do beat in and become really sort of floppy. But that means they're really good at getting beat up, right? So you can see how the top is sort of like waffled and beat in. You can see this sort of ridge on the front. It's great for your thumb, but it also makes it fly super understable. So this guy actually is perfect for short turnovers under 250 feet, but it's still got the fade on the end. Ooh, wow, two. Makes it come back a little bit at the end for you, even if it is flipping, so I can always trust it to come out, versus like a Proxy or something else is a similar disc, but it doesn't have that fade at the end. So this is actually just really nice for those, either a hyzer flip out to like 330, or just a gentle touch anhyzer under 250 feet or something. Yeah, so if you've never tried an Envy, you just have to. It's the most popular disc in the lineup for a very good reason. So that's the understable one. So then the next step up from that is actually this proxy. So this is another electron. So this is cosmic electron, which is the like swirly, bursty colors and stuff. So whenever you hear cosmic, that's what they're talking about with the MVP plastics. But again, it's the electron, it's the grippy stuff, great for wintertime. This, you can see the flight numbers 33-10, or is it 0.5? It's 0.5. You can't really see the 0.5, but this thing, it is super straight, fresh when you get it. Like, it doesn't turn. That -1 is definitely not there. It's just, it doesn't turn, but also doesn't fade. It is just a point and shoot, super straight. Reminds me a lot of like a Comet, like a beat up Comet, kind of, in Z plastic I used to throw. But the idea was that I would be able to beat this thing in and make it my super understable complement to the Envy. And ironically, I throw an Envy to do the more understable shots than this currently, but hopefully I can beat this thing enough to at some point have those kind of flip spots. But you can see it's not too warped yet. It's taken a lot of abuse, but because this is the medium plastic, it tends to hold up a little bit better to those tree shots. So I don't know. I'm hoping this will become my super understable, but for now it's sort of a step more stable than that Envy we just looked at. Let's see, what else is there to say about the proxy? It's a great putter. A lot of people love them. Yeah, it's really just, it feels just like an Envy, but not with the fade at the end. So if you like the Envy, but you don't want to have it be quite so overstable on the end of the flight, proxy's the way to go. So yeah. All right, next up, what do you know, another Envy. This guy is also in the cosmic electron, medium plastic, grippy, and I don't normally throw the Envy in the electron this much, but because of the winter time, this is so much easier to work with than the premium plastics, so I've kind of swapped some of the premium out for this, at least for now. This one is pretty fresh, so this thing still flies straight, more like the numbers, which the numbers 33-12, normally an Envy is a 3302, but the way that MVP does its numbering is that they change it based on the plastic type, because as we all know, the plastic affects the flight. So when you buy it in the baseline plastic, these tend to be a little bit flippier. But yeah, so this thing, being that it's still pretty fresh, flies dead straight, does not turn at all for me up to, probably 250 feet of power, and then will just consistently fade out at the end. So it's just a nice straight to overstable putter, and hopefully I don't beat it up too bad. Still pretty flat, and yeah, hopefully this guy will just sort of fill in that straight shot approach disc for me. And last of all, you got to have an overstable approach for when it's windy and when you need to go a bit more at the end. And that's why I have this Cosmic Neutron Envy, the premium plastic. So this guy, you can see the numbers 3302. It does not turn, definitely doesn't turn. This thing is a bit of a beefcake. I don't know if that's consistent for all Cosmic Neutron or Neutron Envies. This is the only one that I have. The other ones I have are in different plastics, different premium plastics. But this guy it's definitely going left. So it's beaten to the point where now it'll fly a little bit straight before that happens, but it's still definitely going to go left at the end. So this is sort of my overstable workhorse, and it's also great for flick shots, forehands, inside of 200 feet or whatever. It's just a great utility disc. So yeah, that rounds out my 4 approach discs that I'll be using. And normally I do tend to carry a lot of Envies, just because anything 300 feet and under, I tend to just lean on the Envy hard, because it's just a great disc for that. But yeah, this winter bag tends to have a bit more of the baseline plastic versus the premium that I would normally use. Alright, stepping up into the mid-range, another 4. So the first mold we're going to talk about is the Matrix. The Matrix you can think of as essentially being a longer Envy. The numbers are pretty similar as far as turn and fade go. The Matrix is supposed to fade a little less. I would say it's probably a 2. I don't know about that 1.5. But it's just a little faster, a little glidier. So I love to use the Matrix specifically because it comes in Electron. I had a Neutron Matrix, which I ended up losing at the preserve, but I don't think I'll get another Neutron one. I think I'm going to stick with a reactor. We'll see that in a minute. But the Matrix does come in Electron plastic, that baseline grippy stuff, which you can't get the other discs in yet. So I'll keep bagging these until I can get a reactor in Electron. But essentially, I use this disc if I need to get just a little bit more distance. If I want to get closer to 340, 350, and I don't want to put quite as much oomph behind it, or I don't have the room for the height, because this thing I can throw a lot lower and have it sort of skim the ground and get that distance, whereas the Envy I kind of got to get some air underneath it for the longer distance. So these are just money for those dead straight shots. Just not quite where you want to bust out a driver yet. They really hit the spot. And in winter, these things really go a long ways in comparison to most of my other discs, just because of this baseline plastic, and get so much better grip on it that it'll, I can really rip it and get it to just float forever. So this specific Matrix, this red one, you can kind of see a little bit how it's hit enough trees where it's starting to get awfully on the one corner. Sometimes you can see it better you can kind of see this right here, how it's got that line. It took a smack on this side, so it's become a little bit more understable now, where this thing I actually hyzer flipped this one. It's probably more like a negative 1.5 or 2 turn, I would say, at this point. So yeah, it's just really great for those straight shots. And another thing I'll point out, we talked about Axiom because of the Envy and the Proxy or Axiom. The Matrix is an MVP proper disc, MVP. And the way you can tell is that it's got a black rim. So Axiom has the colored rims, and MVP has the black rims. Just if you ever hadn't heard that, that's how you tell them apart. So yeah, I keep 2 of these actually in the bag. This more orange one over here is pretty much fresh. It's not busted up yet. So this thing flies super straight with a nice little fade at the end, and this guy is more of a turnover or flip up to flat hyzer flip disc. So I'll use these if I need that little extra distance that I can't get with an Envy, or if I have like a low ceiling that I need to put it underneath. So that's the Matrix. The next disc in the mid lineup is the Reactor. So the Reactor is a very new MVP disc. It's very similar to the Matrix. The numbers are similar in that, except it's got a little bit more glide and it does a little bit less turn and a little less fade. And in this Neutron plastic, which is their premium, I would equate this to, like, I don't know, ESP, Star, those kinds of, whatever, the opaque sort of gummy premium plastics. So this guy is a bit more overstable than those Matrix discs that we just looked at. So this guy hasn't been beat in very much yet. I've got a few of these, and none of them are really all that beat in. But they fly a long ways. They don't turn over on me, and then they have a consistent fade at the end. So this is sort of, if there's a bunch of trees that I'm going to be throwing into, I don't necessarily want to throw those Matrix discs and have them hit something and get even flippier. So if I need it to be a little more overstable, or I don't want to ruin the disc, I'll probably throw the Reactor. But it's just a super nice disc. I'm excited. I've got one coming in the new Glow 2.0 that I'll be able to use for Glow disc as well. But yeah, the Reactor is just a really, really solid. It replaced my Buzz essentially. It flies very similar to a Buzz if I were to compare it to another disc. And it actually feels more like a Buzz than most mid-ranges that I've messed with. So yeah, fairly flat, not too much of a dome to them. Just a great straight mid-range. All right, last mid-range we got is the Pyro. So the Pyro is a very, very overstable mid-range disc. It's my headwind mid. It's my utility mid. For me, it flies somewhere between like a Discraft Wasp and a drone. So it flies straight for the first, 60 to 70% of the flight, and glides really well, very much like a Wasp. But then it dumps at the end like a Zone, or like a Zone 2, but like a drone. I liked it. I originally was throwing a Runway, which is a very similar kind of disc. It's very overstable mid, but it dumps like immediately out of your hand. Like it's instantly, kind of like a drone, like a fresh flex drone. Like that thing just wants to go left immediately. Whereas this gives me a little bit more utility. It can go straight for a while before it dumps. So it's just super nice to have for those reliable gotta go left drives. Or for forehands, it's also very good. I don't have to worry about accidentally, turning my wrist and having it flip over. This is just a very overstable, trusty disc. Alright, next we'll talk about fairway drivers. I only carry 2 fairway drivers currently. And technically one of them is probably not a fairway. I don't know exactly what the number cutoff is for fairways, but so first off, a true fairway, the Relay, probably one of my favorite discs now. Is just a fantastic. This one I've got in the Neutron plastic, again MVP black rim. Really straight disc when you first get them, like just dead straight. It says a -2 and a 1 for the turn and fade. I would say it's more like a -1 and a 1 when you first get them, and for quite a while actually. They can take a lot of abuse. It's just now starting to get to where I'd say that's maybe like a -2, this one at least. But I have one in Cosmic Neutron that's a bit more stable, and that thing is, I would call it a -1-1 if I were to guess. But yeah, it's just a really nice, easy to throw, very comfortable disc. Gets you that little bit extra distance. If I need like 330 to 340 without having to like put a lot of mustard on it, these things I can finesse in there really well. Or if I need a long, slow turning disc, this is great. So what's really nice about these is when they do turn, they don't turn immediately. Like these things will fly perfectly straight. I don't know if it's the gyro or whatever that does it, but they fly like most 60-70% of the way, and then they start to turn and drift. And it's just the weirdest flight, but it's super useful for those long straight shots that need to kind of finish to the right. So yeah, I've got a few of these. I only bag one at a time, and I'm kind of trying to rotate through and beat them all evenly. But I highly recommend checking out a Relay. The closest thing I would compare it to is like a River or a Leopard. If you've thrown either of those, maybe an XL. I don't remember. It's been a long time since I threw one of those. But yeah, very, very solid fairway driver. Highly recommend trying it. Actually, I think that's also the 2021 PDGA disc that you get when you sign up. So, a lot of people who have one of these if you're just signing up for the first time. And my second, what I call fairway, is the Tesla. This is usually my workhorse disc. I use this a lot. In the wintertime, probably won't use it quite as much. I feel like without good footing, I don't know if I can get this to fly the way I want. But this is just such a great disc. It flies so far. It's got so much glide. The numbers 9.5, -1, 2. I think I'd agree with everything except the turn. Like the -1, that comes, but it comes with a lot of abuse. I would say it's got no turn basically out the gate, and the fade is probably appropriate. It's got a nice little fade at the end. This is such a fantastic like headwind disc for like normal headwinds, not anything too crazy. it just gets a ton of distance. It feels super comfortable. So I was a big fan of T-Birds for the longest time, and this reminds me so much of the flight of those T-Birds. And then this, while we're looking at this crazy plastic, this is the plasma plastic. I don't really know what to compare it to in other brands that I've seen, but it's so it's generally opaque, and this particular plasma is kind of like a cosmic plasma. You can see it's the multicolors, but a lot of times they're kind of like a glittery, shiny. I don't know. It's a little grippier, I think, than I would say Neutron. I don't know. It's very similar in feel to the Neutron, but it's just got a different visual look going on. And honestly, with the MVP plastics, the differences are so subtle to me. I don't think I would really be the best person to ask. But I love the look of plasma, so I tend to choose plasma over Neutron or Proton, which is their clear colored like Champ or Z equivalent. So yeah, anyway, that's plasma plastic, and this is again an MVP disc, the black rim, and my last fairway driver. And last but not least, we have the drivers. And being that I'm talking about winter disc, there's not a lot of drivers involved. I don't want to be overthrowing where I'll be able to see them land, try to find them in the snow. There's not that great of footing a lot of times, so it's just not as much use for a long distance driver in the wintertime that I've seen, at least. So I do bag one of, an understable, a stable, and an overstable disc just to have in case I need them, but I probably won't use them a whole lot. So first off is the Insanity. This is one a lot of people have heard of, Axiom. Mine's got a white rim. And this one again is plasma. You can see how it's kind of sparkles, that gold. It's really kind of cool. It looks much better in person, but it's a sparkly gold with a white rim. The Insanity is an understable distance driver. I don't really know what I would compare it to because I never really threw a disc like this until I was throwing MVP discs. It's not as understable as like a Sidewinder, I know that much. I forget, I want to say it's got like a -2 turn and a 2 fade. Speed 11, I believe. 11 or 9. Might be 9. But yeah, it's just a good understable long range driver. I'll use this if I can see where I'm throwing to and I got a long ways to go. I'll probably try to hyzer flip this guy. It'll turn over pretty well. I can't throw it flat without turning into a roller probably at this point. But if I get enough air, it'll flex back out and you can get pretty good distance off of this guy. I wouldn't use it as a max distance disc anymore. I use a Mayhem for that. I'm not going to throw one of those in the wintertime though. So this is sort of like disking down from the Mayhem. So yeah, the Insanity, very popular disc. Very, very cool driver. If I need to go a little bit straighter and not turn over on me, I'm going to step up to a Photon. So this is the Elaine King Fission Photon. So fission plastic it's kind of like blizzard plastic or whatever, with the micro bubbles injected to make them really light. The difference with MVP is that the micro bubbles are only in the flight plate. The outer rim still contains all the dense material and everything else, so the discs are actually not as light and kind of weird as some of those super light discs are in other brands. They actually fly really, really well. They tend to fly more like you'd expect the disc to fly in other plastics, but they tend to just, I don't know, go a lot further. I don't know. It's really weird to throw them. They're just very different. Because I've thrown blizzard plastic and the stuff is just so light it flips over and it's useless. It doesn't fly like, if you get a Boss blizzard Boss, it's not going to fly like a Boss. It's going to fly, like the 138 Boss that it is. it's just flippy. This thing is only 165, but it flies like it's 175. I'm not going to turn and burn this thing, and it just goes further for whatever reason. It's just a very, you got to try it, I guess. Anyway, so this is in fission plastic. The Photon, speed 11, negative 1.5 and a 2.5 for the turn and the fade. That seems fair, especially this lighter fission one. So I can really punch this thing, and it'll turn kind of slowly. It'll have a late turn and drift to the right, and then come back real hard at the end and dump. But this thing gets so much distance. It's just so easily. It's just such a nice disc to throw. And it's the thing about the Photon is that they fly so different in the different plastics. I mean, every disc flies a little bit different depending on the plastic, but Photons seem to be exceptionally varied depending on the plastic you get. And then even within each group, like this fission, there's been a few different types of fission. And so this is the 5X linking. This stuff is like very, very, I don't know, it's super flexible, pliable, and sticky and gummy. Whereas the newer fission is much harder and firmer and feels a lot like Neutron. So that they feel completely different too. So I think they're experimenting with different styles of fission. So some of the earlier runs will feel different than the ones you get now. But at any rate, this particular fission disc really flies pretty in line with the numbers, I would say, and is just such a super comfortable disc to throw. Again, team MVP with the black rim. And the last disc I have for my winter bag is another Photon, but this one is in Cosmic Neutron, and like I mentioned, they fly very different depending on the plastic. And Cosmic Neutron Photons, it's fun to say. It's even better when you have a Proton Photon, the clear plastic. Anyway, Cosmic Neutron Photon, these things are so overstable, such a meat hook. I use this as my like super overstable like utility driver when it's just got a dump hard left at the end. This flies absolutely nothing like the last one. If I were to put numbers on this, I'd say it's like 11.5, 0, 3.5 maybe. I don't know. It's just super beefy, and it's only 161 grams. I have one that's 175 max weight, and holy mother is that thing. I used that in the tournament that I was talking about a couple of videos ago with those 30 to 40 mile an hour winds, and it never even considered turning over. So yeah, if you're looking for a beefy disc, this Cosmic Neutron Photon is a great choice if you don't want to have to throw another mold into the bag to fill that slot. So that's the drivers. So I guess that's what I have for now. That's the bag I'm going to be using for the next few months at least. The themes being lots of baseline plastic and gummier, softer plastics to avoid cracking, and having, the best grip I can get this winter. And just a lot more mids and approach discs than drivers. I guess, yeah, that's, like I said, that's not super different from my normal game. I tend to throw a lot slower discs so that I'm in more control of where they're landing. I don't really throw anything much over speed like 11. The Photon's about the fastest thing I throw. I don't have the arm to really make a difference beyond that. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but I max out like 380 to 400 feet normally, and so I throw my approaches and putters probably to around 300 or just over 300, mids to about 330, 340, fairways probably about that, maybe up to 350, then the drivers that 350 to 380 usually. Yeah, so hopefully I'll, have another one of these to report on, I don't know, closer to springtime when I get a chance to start playing without snow and ice on the ground. And if you have any questions about MVP discs or plastic, I didn't show any streamlined discs. I do have some of those, but they come in the same plastics. They just don't have that overmold ring around the outside. And I just don't really bag any of them. I do have a Pilot and a Flare and a Runway. And I may have some stuff coming in a mystery box soon to look at. But yeah, if you have any questions about MVP stuff, hit me up. If you have any recommendations or comments about my bag, and if you played any winter disc and have any good tips, feel free to throw a comment. Otherwise, I'll catch you guys in the next video.